You're listening to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
This is the Pain Pod.
You want to see pain? Look at these.
Welcome to the Pain Pod, the podcast for all things pain management. Hosted by the Pain Guy, Dr. Mark Garofoli. We'll be collaborating with numerous pain management experts, talking about substance usage disorders, the latest treatment modalities, and most important, focusing on the pain of our patients as leading providers of pain care. And now, here's our host, a man wanted in all 50 states, a suburban city-like mountain man,
Without the beard.
from the hills of West Virginia, and certified in weapons of mass destruction response. It's Dr. Mark Garofoli.
All right, welcome back everyone to the Pain Pod. Always a pleasure to welcome back Pain Pod Nation, right? So of course you've got yours truly, Mark Pain Guy Garofoli here as our host here on the Pain Pod. And today, well, we're not going to go too deep, right? It's just all about topical pain medications today. We'll go a little bit beyond the surface when it comes to, covering what we need to know as clinicians, as educators, and quite frankly, as patients as well, too. Because we got a lot of different folks listening to the Pain Pod these days. We got patients in pain. We got family, friends, community members. We got healthcare professionals. We got educators. We got folks even beyond that as well, too. So, here on this journey here today, we're going to be covering topical pain medications here on the Pain Pod. But, where to begin? Well, in the big picture, when you think about the use of topical anything in our country, it's appreciably less than the rest of the entire globe for that matter, right? For many different reasons, we just don't get into that stuff all as often as the rest of the world, right? Well, there's a lot that goes into that: studies, funding, availability, trust. The list goes on, of course. But right at the heart of it all is sometimes just knowledge, right? So that's what we're about here today. Here today on the Pain Pod. Just want to take a magical, succinct journey here of going over the knowledge side, because I believe, in previous episodes, you definitely have heard yours truly talking through, the different ideas about one particular study we did, teaming up interprofessionally throughout WVU and WVU medicine, about couple years ago, 2022, we had an article published. Yay, manuscript published, right? Well, yeah, but the overall idea is really educating adolescents on over-the-counter, in general, pain medications, and then deploying those folks out to, do some screenings within the public for going over questions and whatnot. And, you guessed it, what was found was that there's a lot of opportunities. That's the positive way of saying it, right? A lot of opportunities when it comes to learning about over-the-counter pain medicines. And part of that is topical pain medications, right? So that's what we're going to do here today. We're going to scratch the surface and go beyond, right? So where do we really begin? Well, if we're going to talk about topicals, probably should distinguish them from transdermals, right? What the heck is that, right? Well, obviously a pretty simple thing. So, topically is, that formulation, that option, you apply it to, in this case, where we're talking about pain management, you apply the topical product, topical medication to the pain site, and hopefully you're getting efficacy, you're getting effects right there, right? Whereas transdermal, well, that could be applied elsewhere. And then, you're getting that systemic absorption. You're getting it throughout the body overall. So topical hits the target, transdermal hits the whole dartboard, right? All right. One big picture way of looking at it. Perhaps, though, the toughest thing really when talking about topical pain medications is really wrapping our heads around what the heck is in all of those tubes and boxes in that aisle, in the pharmacy, in the grocery store, and heck, even in the airport and gas station these days, right? Amen. Well, we want to be able to wrap our heads around what are all the different ingredients, right? So first up, I just want to kind of go through the different ingredients in topical pain medications, and then we'll get wild and we'll, mention some of the plethora of the products that are out there that basically take different combinations or sometimes just solo ingredients of all those ingredients we'll talk about. Okay. So when we're wrapping our heads around things, we got a couple different groupings. The first one, counter irritants. Okay. It's basically saying it's going to make something warm or cold. Okay. But the counter irritants is one group. Then we have numbing. I mean, where would we be without the numbing agents when it comes to topical medications, right? Then we have our anti-inflammation agents. And then we got, things that are just others, right? But counter irritants, thinking hot and cold, numbing, inflammation agents, and then everything else, right? So let's just start with the counter irritant side of things. Now, if we're going to talk about hot and cold, I know, you're probably channeling that Katy Perry song, Hot When She's Cold or something like that, right? You're not going to get this guy singing on a mic. But anyways, we will do the podcast thing, right? So got to remember heat that in the body, our bodies causes vasodilation. So, if there's something like muscle tension or knots, those muscles being knotty, usually apply heat to help with that. Whereas cold causes vasoconstriction. So if something, you have a muscle spasm, actual twitching, apply cold. Where we run amok is with the, what about if there's inflammation? It's usually like, hey, you want to work through that and then go to the hot or cold side of things for the long term there as well, too, of course. So as far as counter irritants, we're going to go over the warming and the cooling. So, warming. Then we have things, what we call them ribofascins, like salicylate. Something like methyl salicylate is one of the ingredients. So when you're looking at the back of the box, that's what you're going to be seeing, right? And then we also have our capsaicinoids, or, primarily capsaicin. A little bit more to come on that here in a hot second. Uncompletely intended. But anyways, you're thinking here with counter irritants on the warming side, methyl salicylate and capsaicin. So what's up with methyl salicylate? So, it comes naturally, right? It's in things like wintergreen, a couple birch trees and different oils. Over the counter, I'm told the maximum concentration is 20%, and, decently appreciable absorption overall, because it is lipophilic, fat loving. So getting through fat and skin and whatnot, right? There's also, when in the grouping of salicylates, probably should also mention trolamine. There's trolamine salicylate. It's basically triethylamine. That rolled off the tongue, right? Or TEA, tea, like a cup of tea. But tea and salicylic acid, right? Because that tea is going to neutralize the salicylic acids acidity overall. Of note with trolamine salicylate, as far as a warming counter irritant, it's said to lack odor. Well, that comes into play big time for us patients, right? I mean, who wants to walk around stinking it up the place, right? More to come on some of those scents later, but back to, big picture with methyl salicylate, there's a number of products out there that have that in it, of course. You've got some Salonpas agents, Tiger Balm agents, Bengay agents, Icy Hot agents. I could roll off the tongue even more, right? That's our more commonly available products that are out there. No bias here, mention them all, right? There's so many of them. But that trolamine I mentioned, that's actually in, there's the Cream pain relieving lotion, and then there's the Sports Cream depenetrating pain relieving rub. Really long names, folks, and it gets tricky wondering what's in these things, right? We have a cross branding these days, but trolamine, that no scent option, is usually about 10% in there too. So all right, so we're talking about this hot and cold, channeling our inner Katy Perry, right? I gotta mention, think about society, okay? Us humans, like, we made it to the moon in the equivalent of a garbage can, and we invented the internet. And then in 2021, we handed out a Nobel Prize for figuring out how our bodies sense hot and cold. Seriously, it's a Nobel Prize. Google it, or hey, Just trust me, I guess. It involved specific receptor sensors. I call them TRPV1 and TRPM8. So TRPV1 or TRPV1, that's where we sense hot or warming. TRPM8 or TRPM8, that's where we sense cold. Figuring that out got a Nobel Prize in physiology and medicine. Go figure, right? Feels like it should have been decades ago, if not centuries. But hey, better late than never, right? So the whole, why am I honing in on this TRPV1 thing? Well, the long name is Transient Receptor Potential Cation Channel Subfamily V Member 1. I think you're down with calling it a TRPV1 as well. But what activates that? Well, heat, of course, but then capsaicin, mention that, right? That's a hot one, right? Things like garlic, spider venom, even low pH in an environment as well, too. But, you're thinking hot there, right? Now, I mentioned capsaicin. Let's hone in on that puppy, okay? So capsaicin, that's a hot one, right? That makes me think of good old Randy, Macho Man Savage. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah!
Well, quoting such a great philosopher slash wrestler, right? Capsaicin's hot, right? It's coming from hot peppers. It's the poster child for finger cots. If someone's applying capsaicin, the over-the-counter creams, very, very decimal points there for doses, of course. But, as we learned, we probably should have already known, but we certainly learned throughout a pandemic that, we're human and we end up with our fingers in our eyes, our nose, and wherever. But definitely want to make sure to at least wash one's hands after applying capsaicin. Quite frankly, even with or without the utilization of those little finger cots, right? Always wondering what they're for. They're for the application of capsaicin over the counter creams, okay? So that's really important to keep in mind in the big picture. Those creams are available. There's the creams and patches actually over the counter. There's also the combination, capsaicin within other products. Tiger Balm and Salon Pass have combination products and solo ingredient products actually that include capsaicin in as well too. And in fact, taking quite a jump further, actually, capsaicin topical is available actually as a prescription product. There's the Q10's 8% patch. That's FDA approved for two things. Diabetic peripheral neuropathy. Sounds scary, doesn't it? DPN, specifically the feet, by the way. The application, pretty straightforward, but, take some time there and appreciation by the clinician and the patient. Usually, over a half an hour application every 3 months. And then also, that's FDA approved for post-herpetic neuralgia. That application's an hour every 3 months as well. But it's hopefully folks have seen this applied before, but it's a healthcare professional just applying, as specified for the products on the areas. Typically like with DPN for the feet overall, to really rock those nerves, get them back in line, right? Let the good ones stick around to stop that firing and causing of pain overall. But we came in hot with capsaicin, right? Now, the other counter-irritants, of course, are cooling agents. Typically there we're talking about terpenes, things like our buddies camphor, menthol, even some essential oils. Kicking back to that Nobel Prize I mentioned, they're typically a TRPM8 agonist as far as how they work. They're causing vasodilation. Folks, all we need to know is they cool things, right? Some fun facts when it comes to camphor. Camphor is actually get this one, okay? Camphor is actually in sage and rosemary. Why is that applicable? Do you like to camp? Do you like to have a campfire? Patio fire, not a house fire. You just want to have a little fire. We don't all need to be like Snoop and give up smoke coming from campfires with that product. But whether it's a chimney, whether it's a fire pit, whether it's a solo stove, whatever it is, if someone puts a little tiny bit of sage or rosemary into a burning fire, the fire will whoosh up. Just a little bit, right? I know this because the camphor in there is actually said to repel mosquitoes, and I will do anything I can when I'm camping to repel mosquitoes. So you could ask our oldest son, what do we put in moderation into the fire? Well, of course, we put some sage and rosemary. Obviously, you got to keep those skeeters away. They love our blood. But why does that happen? Well, it's the camphor that's in there. It's a terpene. Right? That whole flammable thing comes into play. But honing it back into topical pain medicines here, since we're not camping, we're just listening to the Pain Pod. But I don't know. Maybe you're camping and listening to the Pain Pod. I don't know about reception, all that. Maybe you downloaded it. But anyways, as far as the topical products, we're thinking camphor, menthol, most essential oils being on the cooling side overall. You'd always depend on Pain Guy here in the Pain Pod for some fun pharmacy facts, right? Getting out in nature a little bit more. What's camphor and menthol in? Yes. And I'm not talking cigarettes or anything like that here, folks. That's a whole nother thought. But when we're talking topical pain medications, you've got Salonpas, Bengay, you've got Tiger Balm, you've got Icy Hot, and the list goes on. That's the more heavy hitters overall that are going to have the camphor and or menthol, different percentages, different combinations, lots of options there overall. Now, as far as the essential oils, not going to go too deep into that, but there are products out there that have essential oils in them in a topical pain medication sense. Typically, your Tiger Balms and your Aspir creams have some products available with those overall. Particularly the Tiger Balm, folks, because of just the origins in that realm there. So. All right, let's jump. What was next? Numbing agents will be next, right? Anesthetics. There we're primarily talking, of course, lidocaine, not cocaine. We're talking lidocaine, right? Oh, where'd that come from? So how does that work? Well, if everybody could think back to their undergrad days when we took biology, not necessarily biochem, but bio. The old sodium potassium pumps. That's where lidocaine's working. Okay. I'll leave it at that for being pretty straightforward. It's all about the numbing, right? Fun fact / story I had with your cane products for numbing. I remember much younger years. I was at a dentist getting some dental work done. When they were going to be injecting the lidocaine to numb the area, the dentist started with 2 fingers just tapping my face, my cheek, just rapidly. And I kind of looking up at him, and you never get to talk when you're in the dental office. Just those of us used to a microphone, it just kills us. But anyways, at some point I got to say, like, hey doc, what are you doing? And he's like, real simple, future pain guy. I'm flooding the gates. The gates, the sensory gates in our bodies for touch and pain are either neighbors or they're living together, right? That's how I would describe it anyway. Flooding with touch may help flood the gates so that the pain sensations might not get through as much either. Just a way of, thinking differently for how's the lidocaine working, right? As far as getting things numbing overall. All right. Now, next up we had our inflammation agents, right? Sounds like, walking in like Men in Black or maybe DEA or something or other, like, our agents. Big picture, though, we've got, of course, NSAIDs. And then also we'd probably throw in there some cannabinoids, right? Now that latter there, the cannabinoids, a lot of different formulations these days when it comes to the topical potential pain products overall. So lots to do with that. We've got other episodes of the Pain Pod going into cannabinoids a lot more. So I'm going to default to previous chats. Okay. Now, as far as the NSAIDs, though, it's pretty much all about the diclofenac. When you're looking at prescription topical NSAIDs or over-the-counter OTC topical NSAIDs or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, you're pretty much talking diclofenac. Okay, that's it's available as prescription patches, prescription solution, prescription gel, and also over-the-counter gel. A little bit more on those here. I think it's warranted to touch on some of these, but as far as the patches, you got your Flector diclofenac 1.3% patch. Big picture acute pain, that one's twice a day. Okay, whereas there's Leichhardt diclofenac 1.3% patch, same thing, acute pain, but it's once a day. That's a big change for patients. Okay, so we gotta keep that in mind overall as well too. Then, of course, we've got the solution, the prescription solution for diclofenac, 1.5% Pennsaid. It's FDA approved for osteoarthritis, the knee specifically. Couple of fun facts with that, though. That product has penetration enhancers in it, like to push it through the, getting sub-Q there perhaps or more. Things like one specific one comes to mind always. It's DMSO. Sounds like a band or something, right? Dimethyl sulfoxide. Well, that's actually metabolized in the body to end up with a very interesting side effect for a topical pain medication, garlic breath. I'm not saying this because I'm Italian, folks. But like, yeah, and we have an appreciable amount of garlic and everything in these parts. But anyways, you don't have to imagine, but because it's real. But imagine utilizing a topical pain medicine. Like you're the patient and you're utilizing this thing that, doctor, pharmacist, we all said, hey, yeah, give this a try. And all of a sudden you get garlic breath. I mean, try connecting the dots on that one, right? But yeah, it's all about that DMSO. It's basically, it gets the metabolites, the dimethyl sulfide is what ends up being there, giving the garlic breath. So more fun facts there. Let's keep them coming. Another fun fact for diclofenac. So it's available prescription over the counter in the gel, the Voltaren gel. That was originally approved, gosh, almost 20 years ago. I think 2007-ish, give or take a year there, or maybe even give or take 2 years. But anyways, but on Valentine's Day 2020, not like we had anything else going on in the world then, right? But on Valentine's Day 2020, it was approved for over the counter in our country. Kind of interesting. Many years before that, I remember being on my honeymoon with Dr. Gretchen Garofoli, and of course, in that resort, went to the fun gift shop, and yeah, lo and behold, they had Voltaren gel there available over the counter, and I'm like, man, when are we going to catch up? Well, Valentine's 2020. That's when we caught up, right? A couple things to keep in mind, though. It's intended for osteoarthritis joint pain, not for every other pain on the planet. Usually, they say up to 7 days. They actually come out to say with that thing that it's not shown to be effective for strains, sprains, bruises, sports injuries. Really just honing in on that osteoarthritis joint pain along the way. Hey, I mentioned sprains and strains. Who knows the differences there? I mean, as if you had a chance to answer, right? It's a podcast. But anyways, sprain, that's involving ligaments. They connect bones, of course, bone to bone, sprains. Strains has a T in it. That involves tendons, right? And tendons, of course, connect muscles to bones. So little appreciable differences there. A lot of folks are very familiar with different strains, things like tennis elbow, or even the cousin to that of golfer's elbow along the way. So what do we want to know when it comes to the particularly the over-the-counter option for access for our patients overall when it comes to topical diclofenac gel? 2 at the top, 4 at the bottom. Okay, what do we mean by that? So a lot of times the product will come with a dosing card. To say like, okay, squeeze out a little line of this like out of the tube, and you'll have approximately a 2-gram dosage and a 4-gram dosage, just more of it. So up top there, we're thinking like, hey, things, our joints that are above our waistline, above the belt, those are smaller joints, right? Whereas things like knees, they're down low, those are bigger, so they get a larger dose overall. So 2 at the top, 4 at the bottom. Okay. All right. Turns out we got other things as well too. We're flying through these topical pain medication ingredients, but one comes to mind, even the traditional antidepressant, the tricyclic antidepressant, TCA, the doxepin, right? That's actually available as a prescription cream, the Zonulon 5% cream. It's just, for localized effects there is a TCA. Typically, it's applied 4 times a day for itching. Some would say neuropathic pain as well, along those lines there too. So, big picture, we've completed our initial journey here, by the way, for just going through the different traditional, typical topical pain medication ingredients. Again, the counter irritants. Warming, cooling, numbing things, lidocaine, inflammation agents, cannabinoids, NSAIDs, and then mentioned doxepin along the way as well. But, we really got to take into the patient perspective. It's one thing when you go into the analgesics aisle within any pharmacy and you see the daunting task of finding regular Tylenol compared to extra strength, right? Go try and do that. It's like the treasure hunt. Anyways, and then you turn around on the other side of the alley, you got all these creams and lotions and ointments, right? Tons and tons of products. I already mentioned a couple of the companies and the plethora of the products that they have. We base that off of ingredients because, again, we really want to hone in to say, what's the intention? What are we looking to use? Are we looking to numb? Are we looking to deal with inflammation? Are we looking for that warming or cooling or both effects along the way? Make those decisions, and then the products line themselves up, right? And then there's all the other ones too, right? Good golly. Gosh, there's even there's the Blue Emu products that are out there. I did some looking into that. Turns out they have some omegas reportedly in them. And lots of reported potential utilizations, but again, not necessarily your traditional products, but wanted to mention those. Gosh, we got so many others. Now we have like roller balls that are available. I believe there's the Aleve X roller ball. They got a lotion and spray as well. What's in that? Camphor and menthol. Again, we're thinking campfire, right? What other products? We got things like BioFreeze or Deep Heat or Deep Heating, Mineral Ice, Vicks Vapor Rub, right? Even back in the day that was available. Camphor, menthol, and they had some eucalyptus oil in there too, essential oil, right? Other numbing, we got benzocaine, of course. It's not just lidocaine. Arnica is one that comes up in conversation a lot. There's just so many. Then you got your sometimes even compounded agents like there's the Bacplo. What do you say? Yeah, Bacplo, B-A-K, and then P-L-O. Baclofen, amitriptyline, ketamine. That's a common one. And then, hey, how about some moms out there? If breastfeeding was a thing, may have come across the Apno. And they'll usually add ibuprofen in there. Apno, A-P-N-O, all-purpose nipple ointment. Typically, something like betamethasone, nipuracin, and then miconazole. Those last two are 1-to-1. Typically, but we're getting into compounding things there too, and that's a whole another wild west frontier, right? The point is, there's many different topical pain medications. The goal in this conversation, this Pain Pod podcast here today, was really just to whittle it down for the ingredients, how we wrap our heads around these as not only healthcare professionals, but educators, patients, everyone within society as well. And, what I'd wrap up with was, hey, what's Pain Guy's favorite topical? Or I'd say Pain Guy's favorite cream? Ben & Jerry's Tonight Dough ice cream. And you know what? If I had a second place or another favorite one, I'd actually even say I think Hershey's has the Camel ice cream. Good golly, how did we end up with Camel ice cream? That stuff's phenomenal too. That's my favorites, right? Good golly. Hope you get to enjoy those at some point too. And hopefully this conversation here, this rapid rundown, podcast style, Pain Pod bringing it as always for topical pain medications. I look forward to joining you on the next episode of the Pain Pod. And until then, as I always say, folks, as Pain Guy, have a great day every day.
If you'd like to join Mark on the Pain Pod, send us an email to publisher at pharmacypodcast.com. And make sure to share the show and subscribe on your favorite podcast directory. Thanks for listening.